friends. Good evening. How are you? Patrick, Randy, nice to have you along with us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Midweek celebration of the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan. History and celebration, history and tradition of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. This is something we do every Wednesday night. Last week, we were live at the Lumberjack Restaurant. Hey, Johnny, good evening. How are you, buddy? Johnny, I didn't know you came this far downstate when you were here the other day. Uncle Johnny was telling me that you were at the same place that Uncle Johnny was just a couple hours later. So isn't that interesting? Corey, good evening. How are you? Hey, Craig. Craig, look what I got here, buddy. Also, I gave that knife to Trent, and he said, thank you very much. That was a very, very nice thing of you to do, Craig. I appreciate that. Craig's one of the good guys. Dan, teaching fishing. It's the first time I've seen you log on with teaching fishing, Lance. Hello, Dan. How are you? Jerry. Tom says, thanks again for the Lumberjack last week. Wasn't that a good time? Wasn't that just a riot? I had so much fun. Hey, Michelle, how are you? Craig's better half. Jim, how are things in Tennessee? Always a pleasure to have you checking in with us. Nick says he enjoyed the show last week. We did too. For those of us who were there, it was great. Paul, good evening. Hello, Jeff. Kevin, how you doing, buddy? Kevin, did you hear the conversation I had with your partner, Josh Mapes, on the radio show last week? He did a great job. Great story. Very nice. Johnny, I get it. I get it, Johnny, completely. I just thought it was interesting that you and Uncle Johnny ended up at the same place. Hey, Ted, John, I should have told him that. I said, Trent, you can try it. I should have said, Trent, you can try it out on your grandpa's doe if I ever kill one. Jeez, oh, man. Hello, Bruce. Jake. Hey, Captain, how you doing, buddy? Captain says, good evening, everyone. Even Lance. Actually, he said including Lance, but I say even. Sal, how are things over in YouTube land? Marlette checking in. Ruben from Colorado. How's the mature doe hunt pursuit? Well, not so good. Not so good. It seems like an absolute crime that I shouldn't be able to shoot a doe, for crying out loud. Jim said everything's good. Hey, Shannon, how are you? Tony, teaching fishing. Hey, Marky. You know what I call him, Mark, Captain Pananzak? When he calls me Mikey, I call him Sir Lancelot. That's my new name for Lance Valentine, Sir Lancelot. So call him that. James, good evening. How are you? No, I didn't get my doe yet. Ken says nothing for him in Lapeer County yet either. Just fawns and tiny bucks. Going to be squirrel hunting. Maybe that's what I should. David, how you doing, bud? Oh, listen to this. Hey, Mike, good to see you. Just closed on his 80 acres in the UP. You got to come up and hunt sometime. That sounds wonderful. Let's hope you can keep the wolves off your property there. We did, Tony. How about you? From Cohocton. Where is that, George? Evening, Captain Jim. How are you? Roy. Kevin checking in from downriver. Brent, buddy. Randy I. Murray. Sir Lancelot says he's been called worse. Tracy says, hey. Hey, Trace. Corey says he only had 11. Darn you, Corey. I keep complaining about the fact I cannot find a doe in daylight. Corey says, I only had 11 in daylight in my backyard by the deck this evening. Hey, thanks, bud. Appreciate you. Captain Pananzak says, I can't type in public what I call him. Patrick says, Walmart online has the Wraith for $270 for $110. This is very interesting. Patrick, I think you and I talked about this offline. When Primal came to me and said, listen, we want to use the promo code AveryFall23 through the month of November, and you could get a Wraith blind for 50% off, which was $130, which is a hell of a price. They said, Mike, that is the lowest price anybody anywhere is going to be able to get it. We are giving you a promo code that will allow your listeners to get the lowest price anywhere on that Wraith 270. So then when Patrick was telling me at one time they were $99, I called the folks. I didn't call them. I texted the folks at Primal and I said, hey, what's the deal? They said, number one, we were not aware of that. And number two, we don't know where they got the stock from. They were going to look into it. Jim, how you doing? It was so nice to meet you last week, Jim. Really had a good time. I knew what you meant, Corey. Johnny says, I'm ready to hear that you get a Michigan Bear tag for 2024. I will, Johnny. Branches, good evening. Lost Glove. It was so nice to meet you folks last week. Thank you also for the wonderful gift. As soon as I'm done, I will partake of that in my crystal light. Beaver Island is still in play. Remind me, Lost Glove, what we're talking about. Hey, Ace, how you doing, buddy? I bet you my audio sounds better tonight than it did last Wednesday, hey? Nicholas, Craig, Ed Bolanowski. Ed, the saga with Westwood One continues. They swear up and down they're not doing anything wrong, even though you and I both know for the last 5 weeks they've repeated the second hour of the show, of the radio show. So here's what we're doing. We're switching to a new satellite distribution system, or possibly an alternate to that. In the meantime, I am suggesting my affiliates, and I've already talked to your guy there in Traverse City about taking the shows off FTP. I personally upload the shows to the FTP, so I know they're the right shows. There's no excuses there. I do it. So I'm recommending our shows, our affiliates, take the shows off FTP for at least the next couple of weeks till we get this situation resolved. And shame on Westwood One. Ruben says, you and Ted need to come out elk hunting in Colorado. I have been elk hunting in Colorado, and it was so cool. What's Tony saying? Personal best. Maybe my lifetime deer, but lost my father last year, so it's just not the same. Ain't that the truth? Sir Lancelot says he usually calls me to fish. My fish. Lance, I've done the same thing. Although you and I both have to admit there was one day when I was in there by the island and you came in there and you had that 99-year-old vet with you and you guys caught a nice fish. You're welcome. James says you got to take the longbow out again, then you'll get a shot at a doe. Good juju. I've never hunted with a longbow in my life. I got you. I've hunted with a recurve, never a longbow. Hey, Scott. Oh, Patrick, thank you. You got it for $99 on Cyber Monday. Thank you for that clarification. Lisa, hey, Mike, remember to visit our brick and mortar sporting goods store. Remember to visit our brick and mortar sporting goods stores. They're struggling against Amazon. Absolutely. J Sporting Goods, my favorite store on earth. Costco's pretty close, though. Captain Jim, Mike, I understand you want to get a deer off your lease with all the hard work you put in. The question to be asked is, do you want venison in the freezer this year? Hunt the offers. Very good point. I do want venison in the freezer. I do want to take a big doe off our lease property because we have put a lot of time and effort into it. And I put a lot of hours into hunting it. It may not be in the cards this year, but I have many offers from many good friends who say they're overrun with does. They say, Avery, just come and shoot one of mine. It doesn't quite seem right, but maybe I will. Tommy Accardo, it was so nice to meet you and your wife and your cute little daughter last Wednesday at Wednesday Night Live. Thank you for coming up. I appreciate it. Bernie, how are you tonight? David says, hunting real slow here in Menominee County. If we had a wolf hunt, how would that go? David, Paul, Shannon says it sounds much better. A possible hunt. Thank you. Yeah, Jim said it's great to meet you and your wife. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, Jim. Jim Ward is a guy that I met in person for the first time last Wednesday at Wednesday Night Live. He's a West Michigan guy. His son, Doug, runs not Walleye Express. I can't think of it. Help me out, Jim. And I met his wife, Linda, there as well, your daughter-in-law, Jim. So, yeah, it was really fun. I appreciate it. Elmer checking in from Petoskey, one of the most beautiful places in the state. All right, Johnny, all you got to do is walk across the street, man. Michael, Barry. Holy cow. 2 years ago at Myers brought 2 pop-up blinds on clearance for $3 a piece. Tom says, fingers crossed for the Pure Michigan Hunt drawing next month. Everyone in my family has chances in their stockings this year. Cool, cool, cool. You know, I'm just twisting your Hey, Lance, you talked to anybody at Angler Quest lately? And I'll just leave it at that. Jerry, always a pleasure. Patrick, looks like I might get to fill one of my bucket list whitetail hunts in Saskatchewan next year. Fingers crossed. How cool would that be? I know it. I know it. I know it, Corey. I appreciate that. I really do. Josh Mapes. I was just talking about you, buddy. I was talking about the radio conversation that we had last weekend. And what a great story that was about that hunt with your daughter and how she took that big buck. And the YouTube video you put together and the emotion was just so genuine and so beautiful. The only other thing that will rival that level of intensity when your daughter, 2 things. One is when you walk her down the aisle. And then when she has a baby. Jerry, hunt yours after you get one there. A good point. I could do that. Jason, didn't I just see you? Jason Gaston, my fellow Trinity brother. We just went to a church service tonight at Trinity at 4:30, an Advent service where the preschoolers and the kindergartners sang. And I was there because my nephew's twins sang. So it was pretty cool. So anyway, Jason, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us, you, Jamie, and Joe at the Wednesday Night Live last week at the Lumberjack. David, same thing to you, Dave. Nice to see you there. David, a lot of people wish we had a wolf hunt. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Good evening, Dennis. How are you? Beaner. I was wondering that same thing. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand. Any word on the gentleman you had on the show last week? Did he get an elk? I'm assuming he did, Nick. And thanks for chiming in, Nick, to let me know you're here. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to give away another ham for the holidays, a Michigan Brand ham for the holidays, courtesy of our friends, the Grillo family at Michigan Brand Meats. That's going to be in 2 minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Thank you, Nick. Nick's also on the radio show this week. I'll talk more about that as well. Dean, how are you tonight? Appreciate you joining us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. Paul checking in from Southwest Florida where the fishing is picking up. Now, you moved down there, right, Paul? You live down there now. Oh, I knew what you meant. If I said something wrong, Nick, I knew you meant the Pure Michigan Hunt. Hey, Bill Martin, how you doing, buddy? How have you been? Bill, you're still bouncing back and forth, right? You got the place in Florida and a place up here too. In fact, I know you do because I was talking to your brother and he said you guys did real well on your property. Marion, good evening. Hey, Ross. I remember in the comments this morning that a date has been set near the end of January. I am so happy for you. Congrats. Sir Lancelot said he talked with Mark the other day. $13, not 3, 13, and had a guy offer me 50 for them after that. 13 is still pretty good. Mark, you and I should talk tomorrow, Lance. Based on what you just said, you and I should talk tomorrow. Let's make it a point to give each other a phone call. Hey, Lance, call Sir Lancelot. We should talk. Josh, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand says, great YouTube video on the buck. It was so cool. It was so very cool. I'm surprised there's not an Angler Quest on the Michigan Walleye Tour. Hey, Tony, how are you? Jerry, fingers crossed, I'll get one of my bucket list done and get to hunt with Mike Ebery in Ohio in 2024. That would be great. I'm waiting on a firm date. I think we're going to move it back a week. So it's going to be closer to the rut next year. Well, it is a long way off, but it's going to happen awfully fast, Josh. Awfully fast. Hello, Scott. Carlos, the mighty Muskegon. The Muskegon's a beautiful river. Just an absolute beautiful river. Express Fishing Charters. Thank you, Jim. Express Fishing Charters. Bill Steele from West Dayton Outdoors checking in. Sorry, we're late. Not a problem. Don't worry about it. Indirectly heard from AQ. It's all good on the boat. I'm going to have an Angler Quest next year as well. Exciting things, honestly. After some really scary and disturbing and sad news that came out of Apex regarding Angler Quest, there's some great news coming out of it now, and I couldn't be more excited. You are more than welcome, Josh, and thank you. Nick says that too. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. Nick Grillo, Patrick says he picked up his Michigan brand ham for Christmas at VG's in Fenton last Saturday. He won a ham for the holidays 4 or 5 years ago. I bought one every year since. I buy mine every year. Tony said, anybody still efficient? Man, I got to catch up on these because we got to give away. Hey, Mike, Michigan Outdoorsman, how are you? Johnny. Heidi and I will be down for the Trinity dinner. I'm looking forward to it. Miracle Granddad this weekend. One was supposed to. Okay. 6x6. 11 years old. Excellent. Sir Lancelot's headed to Detroit Sunday. Thoughts on a $1? I think Michigan should be $1. Hey, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. If you are looking for a quality, high percentage bear hunt in Ontario, Ron St. Louis is your guy. Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, northernwildernessbearoutfitters.com. I had one of Ron's good friends on the radio show this week. Okay, so listen, you know how this goes. It's time now, starting right now. There's your 2-minute warning. Make your comments on why you want to win a Michigan brand ham for the holidays. MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. Michigan brand ham for the holidays at the Avery House. We have one for every holiday. They are excellent. This is something we started a few years ago when I first started working with Nick, and they are so good. Make your comments clever, make them cute, but please do not say, I will give the ham to a needy family, because that makes it impossible for Nick. That's a great thing to do, but that makes it impossible for Nick to pick a winner. Tommy Accardo says, Michigan brand ham is good. Jerry Prevey says, good evening, Captain. Oh, he didn't make a comment about Michigan brand ham. Sue says, I'd love to have a Michigan brand ham for Christmas. Roy says he's never had one, but would love to. Rex would love to. Stacy says they're the best. I think she's had one before. Randy I. Murray, let's hang it up. Let's ham it up. Michigan brand's hams, never had one. Randy, how can you be a Bay City guy and never have a Michigan brand ham? Stacy says, no, dear, she's hungry. Tyler, I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Bought some Michigan brand products, hot sticks. I'd love to try the ham. Absolutely. MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. I did not receive one for Veterans Day. 1 minute. Oh, you're pulling the veterans card on us, eh, Corey? That's almost as effective as the giving it to a needy family card, because you'll love supporting Michigan companies, because we've never had one. Need a Michigan brand ham. Oh, we did have a blast. It was great. Best ham in Michigan. 24-hour shift. The fire department on Christmas Eve. You need a ham for that. Absolutely amazing. 30 seconds. John Callison's not on here tonight. John Cohn, how you doing, buddy? Another Trinity brother. Since John Callison isn't here tonight, because he has company, Ross, we don't have an official timer. 10 seconds. 10 seconds on the Michigan brand ham. 9, 8, 7. Let's keep those comments coming. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, One. That one wasn't bad. And John Callison isn't here to time it, but I can go back and look at the live feed and time it. Jerry says, nice distance. I was turning red. You like the buzzer? It was a good buzzer this week. You have to admit, my friends, it was one of my better buzzers. 32.58, Dan says. That's not bad. Anything over 30 is 10 seconds, Bob. 32.09, according to Craig. 10 seconds. I hope you don't win the ham. I hope you don't win the ham, Bob. What do you think of that? Stopwatch says 32.02. We're right in that 32-second mark. Nice one. Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the kind comments. I appreciate it. All right, Nick, who did you pick? Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats, MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. Unless I missed it. Did Nick pick one already? Rex Lansing. Rex Lansing. Oh, good point, Ed. Good point. Rex Lansing. Rex, congrats. And if you thought your feed was broken, I did do a good job. I'm actually quite proud of myself. I really did do a good job. Rex Lansing, congrats on winning a Michigan brand ham for the holidays. Rex, if you would either send me your mailing address with a private message here on Facebook. Tim, you just missed one of the best buzzers ever. Or get a hold of Nick directly. Give us your mailing address, and Nick will get that ham out here as soon as possible. As long as I'm talking about Nick, I'm going to go into the rundown of this week's show, and I'm going to skip down to the Ask Avery segment. I'll get back to the rest of the show here in just a minute. As you know, I think you might know, the Ask Avery segment is the last segment in the second hour every week, and it's a feature brought to you by Security Credit Union. It is an opportunity to delve into some very important issues, some questions people are asking, often very, very important issues of the day. And I think that our Ask Avery segment this week is probably one of the most, probably one of the best ever. And I am in great shape, Corey. This week's Ask Avery question actually comes from Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. I have him on the show this week, and he says, Mike, this time of year, I get a lot of questions from people on how to cook their Michigan brand ham. And that is this week's Ask Avery question. And we went on for a good 6 minutes on how to do that. See, the hams are already cooked. You can take one out of the fridge and slice a piece off and eat it, which I often do. They're so good. MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. Congrats to Rex Lansing. Rex, send us your shipping address. We'll get a ham off to you. I say we. Nick Grillo will. Nick, my friend, thank you again to you and the Grillo family of Michigan Brand for your generosity. The website, MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. You have a Michigan Brand store near you, probably. If not, go to that website, MichiganBrand.net, MichiganBrand.net. Use the store locator function or the store locator button. Put in your zip code. Tell the search engine how far you want to go in distance, and it'll find the nearest stores to you. How cool is that? All right, Lance. Lance is going to do his teaching fishing. Where'd we go, Lance? I appreciate that. Now, Lance, I tell you what, my friends, when I'm done here, and I'll be done in about 20 minutes, I would encourage you to go over to Teaching Fishing and Lance Valentine, Sir Lancelot, does a live stream very similar to this. In fact, he got the idea from me. He stole the idea from me. He also stole the idea of the Ask Avery segment. He does a Ask Captain Lance segment. It's okay, Lance. I get it. I get it. I've stole a lot of information from you, so it's only fair that you would steal some tips from me. Rick says, I've got an Ask Avery for you. I'll email it too. Please do it. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Would the DNR consider making the early and late antlerless hunt for both public and private land instead of private land only? Good question. Good question. Email it to me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Hey, Lori, how are you? Ed says if he gets a doe, he's going to have Michigan brand do a venison ham for him. Art Lewis. Hey, Art, good evening. How are you, buddy? Art, you and I did not get a chance to talk today in the studio. It was a little hectic around there, wasn't it? It was very interesting. And thank God I didn't have to fill an hour with no guest like you did. All right, my friends, I'll let you in on a little behind the scenes thing. In fact, I posted a picture on my Facebook story and my Facebook feed when I got into the studio this morning. Now, keep in mind, this is after 2 days, well, actually 5 weeks and 2 days of dealing with Westwood One, my satellite distribution company, telling me they had things fixed and they didn't. So they continuously rerun the second hour of the show. So I'm going into the studio with that frame of mind, but I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm trying to be upbeat and positive and do a good show. I walked in the door. Charlie Root is waiting for me. He says, guess what? He said, our phone lines are down. He said, we can't call out and we can't call in. Not what you hear when you're walking in the door to do a 3-hour radio show that relies very heavily on guests that I talk to on the phone. The solution was, and we've done this before, and it's not that big a deal, but it is a little bit of hassle after 3 hours. I used my cell phone. I would call the guests on my cell phone, and I would put my phone on speaker, and I had another microphone. I had the one I was talking into, and then I had another microphone down by the desk that I tilted down like this, and I put it right on top of my phone, and it actually worked out pretty good. John says, I think the late doe season will go public land at some point. Too many deer, not enough hunters. I wish I had that problem with too many deer. Jerry, does Michigan brand ship hams? Yes, they do. Jerry, they do. They will ship. Plus, listen to this, Jerry. If you go to the website, michiganbrand.net, and you go to the store or the shop button or whatever it is, and you order something, and when you check out, you put in the promo code Mike20. That's Mike20. You will save 20% on your order. Mike20, 20% on your order. It is kind of hard to have a phone interview without a phone. But we did it, Tim. We made the most of it. And again, it was so nice to see you and Jen and the family there. Niece said she got the biggest hug from Jen, and she just loved it. Absolutely loved it. You are welcome, Jerry. Okay. I'm with you, Brian. Brian says, I haven't seen a deer in 3 weeks on my property. I'm still shooting a doe if I see one, maybe 2. Let me do a quick login here to our cameras. It'll take me 10 seconds to get into this. Yeah, plenty of deer. Yep. Every stinking one of them after dark except for a button buck. All right, so let me tell you who's on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. We start out, and I think you're going to find this very interesting. I think most of us would agree who are conservationists and take our role as wildlife managers seriously. I think most of us would agree that we need a wolf hunt in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. We can't have one, not because the DNR won't do this. People keep blaming the DNR. It's so easy to blame the DNR for everything. And I realize they're not perfect and they do a lot of screw ups. But in this case, you can't blame the DNR for not having a wolf hunt. It's a federal issue. Every time we get close, the antis file some crazy injunction or suit or whatever the correct term is. And the federal judge, they judge shop, they find a friendly federal judge who says, no, you can't have a wolf hunt. Nathan, ever thought of doing a Wednesday night live with Primal at Charlie's Restaurant in Lupton? I tell you what, Nate, that actually would be, boy. No, I haven't. What's his restaurant called, Nate? Remind me. Charlie Wiltsey's restaurant in Lupton. Craig, what's it called? Nate, what's it called? Because that actually would be not a bad choice. Although it's not as easy to get to as the Lumberjack. When I do a live, Cedar Tavern, thank you. When I do a live event, there has to be a reason to go to that place. Like when we did them at Dixie Dave's, there was an obvious reason to go to. Dave was a friend of mine, a partner of mine, and he was on the show every week, so it made sense. To do them at the Lumberjack is an obvious tie-in because Lumberjack is owned by Forward Corporation. I work with the Forward Corporation. I would not be inclined or interested in doing a Wednesday night live at a place that I did not have a reason to go there, meaning there was no existing partnership to make it worthwhile. However, Nate, as you point out, Charlie Wiltsey is a very important member. And by the way, he shot a mountain lion out in Wyoming, and he'll be on the podcast very soon. There. Lance's YouTube channel, I don't know, Teaching Fishing. Nope, it's Cedar Cafe. I wrote Cedar Springs. That's where I used to live, where I grew up. I haven't lived there in 40 years, 50 years. Cedar Cafe. Okay, so we can't hunt wolves here in Michigan. We should be able to, but we can't. You can hunt a wolf if you're willing to drive across the border, say go across in the Sioux, and go up to the White River area, the Wawa area, because there are people up there who guide wolf hunts. I did this about 10 years ago. I hunted with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. I hunted in weather that was 40 degrees below zero. I earned that animal. I took 2 different trips to go up there. My first hunt, my first sit, no problem doing a Wednesday night live right now. Maybe he'll join us. If he does, I'll tell you who this is. First night out there, I passed a small, what I think was a female wolf because she was, she didn't have mange, but she looked mangy. Her coat wasn't good. So I passed it up. Never saw another animal on that trip. So I had to come back a couple of weeks later. Eventually took a very, very nice wolf. In fact, it's sitting right there. You want to see it? I could show you. I'll show you. Right there. That's the wolf I shot in White River, Ontario, Canada, hunting with Pete Jones of Superior Bear Outfitters. As long as I'm at it, that's an Ontario wolf. That is an African wildebeest, Ontario bear, African gemsbuck. And now you got to come back and you got to see me. There's a bunch of critters around here. They're all over the place. Ooh, that's going to fall down. Yeah, I've got some pretty cool mounts. I've been pretty blessed. Well, they did look pretty big, didn't it? It looked like it was 160 pounds. It's 98 pounds. 98-pound weakling. Okay, so let me get back to the show, which is where I started this whole thing here, right? Daryl Godden is my first guest on the show this week. Daryl is a friend of Ron St. Louis, who was on here just a minute ago, if not still. Ron is my bear guy in White River, Ontario. Well, if I was going to do another wolf hunt, Daryl would be my wolf hunt. It would be my wolf guide. Daryl talks about wolf hunting in White River and talks about how he is so successful. He has a very good track record. And I think if you're willing to go out there and sit in the bush for a week and hunt with Daryl, you're going to have a really good chance of killing a wolf. My next guest on the show is a Michigan hunter by the name of Chris Lutz. And Chris did go up there and he did hunt with Daryl, and his hunt lasted a total of 3 minutes. And he tells the story on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. We wrap up the first hour with Ben Nielsen of Showspan. You know, just around the corner, the Ultimate Fishing Show Detroit is the second weekend in January. That's not that far away. In the second hour, I'm a little dry tonight. This is just Crystal Light. Not for much longer. In the second hour, Tom Simon of High Pressure Pneumatics Air Rifles in Farwell, his website, myhighpressureair.com, talks about using high performance, big caliber air guns to hunt with. Pretty cool. Then Nick DeShano of Offshore Tackle joins me to talk about something new they're doing. For years, they've had this publication called the Offshore Release. Get it? A pun, right? It's like a news release, plus it's a fishing release. They now have a digital version of that. Tom did used to work at Jay's. Absolutely. Did used to work at Jay's. Lori says she'll be at the Kalamazoo Outdoor Sports Expo this year. Excellent, Lori. Have fun. Yeah, in Farwell, Michigan. Yeah, or Harrison, somewhere right in there. So Nick DeShano talks about that new offshore release, and then the segment I was telling you about, the most poignant and important and riveting Ask Avery segment that we've probably ever done. It was with Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats on how to best cook a Michigan brand ham. And I'll just leave it at that. If that doesn't draw you in, I don't know what will. And in our third hour, I'm switching gears a little bit. And we talked to Gary Morgan of Wild Game Dynasty, wildgamedynasty.com, about bobcat hunting and trapping. And of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. Okay, a couple more things I want to talk about. Let's see what your comments are. Who have I missed here? Dave, I have a few red squirrels air gun could practice on. Yes, but I have a 177 caliber pellet rifle here that is a pump gun. Like you pump it up, I would shoot the red squirrels with that. The guns he's talking about, Dave, are pneumatic. They have a canister on them that is filled with air. And he said he's got a customer from Midland who used one of the big bore rifles and shot a very nice buck at 200 yards. So these are well beyond the tools we would use to shoot red squirrels. Hello, Ralph. How are you? Craig says, hopefully we get some ice, do some ice fishing. Yeah, Tom, actually, when he was at Jay's, I bought my gun safe from him, Martin. I bought my gun safe from Tom Simon. No, seriously. Hey, Corey, speaking of Missouri, I'd actually forgotten that I hunted there. I was thinking it was Nebraska. I've hunted Nebraska and Missouri, it turns out. When I was talking with Gary Morgan of Wild Game Dynasty, because I have hunted bears with Gary, I have hunted deer with Gary in the UP, and we have worked together on some turkey hunts. I remembered going on a hunt with Gary out west, but like I said, I thought it was Nebraska. It was actually Missouri. I've hunted Missouri for whitetails before. My deer hunting exploits include Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and Alberta. I have a CO2 rifle, but the neighbors are too close for that one. And again, Dave, CO2, I get what you're saying. The CO2 guns, these guns, like Tom Simmons talking about, are like a league different. Drain ends. What does that mean? Drain ends January 5th. Drain ends. Got to go back to Missouri for another buck. Drain ends. Drain ends. Season ends. Okay. What part of Missouri? I can't tell you. Can't tell you, Corey. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't remember. Where did I see the biggest bucks? Alberta and Kansas, hands down. Ohio was right there behind it. Very dry. I can't tell you that, Jim, because I don't remember. I don't. But he said the ballistics of these guns will roughly match a muzzleloader. So they're legal. People kill bears with them. People kill deers with them. Deer with them. Bear and deer, not bears and deers. It's walleye, not walleyes. It's perch, not perches. Tim says, I saw a video today of a reporter getting attacked by a buck and instantly thought of me. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That video made way too many rounds. Okay, so what else? Are you sick of it being dark yet? I feel like it's dark all the time. All the time. I have made it back out in the woods. I was out there for the last day of muzzleloader season with my 350, which seemed a little bit weird, but it was completely legal. Didn't see anything. Didn't see a thing. I still have the late antlerless season, and I can still hunt with my Brenton 350 Legend, and I'm going to try to get it done. Our next Wednesday night at the Lumberjack, Wednesday Night Live at the Lumberjack, will be the end of March in 2024. I'm going to take a look at that Cedar Tavern, Charlie Wilsey's Cedar Tavern. Again, if you see or hear a repeat show, nice air guns, but their prices are equivalent to real. Oh, they're expensive. They're very expensive. A latest craze on Facebook, pushing the one doe, one buck narrative. Your thoughts? I think it's ridiculous to have a $2 limit. I think it's ridiculous. And I've actually posed this. I posed this to the DNR wildlife biologist. In fact, the chief DNR wildlife biologist. And I said, why are you allowing people to shoot two bucks? And he said, well, statistically, he said very few people do it. So statistically, it doesn't have an impact on the harvest. My point is, I'm not talking about statistics. I'm talking about if you want to grow bigger bucks, and this whole let them go, let them grow thing, I have mixed thoughts on it. If you want to do it, great, but don't mandate it to somebody else. But if on your property or your hunt club or whatever, if you had a $1 tag, you might be inclined to be more selective. With $2 tags, you can shoot a smaller buck because you've got a tag for a bigger one out there. So you're not going to be as selective. So I would like to see a $1 tag. I would not be opposed to the earn a buck tag, which means you have to shoot a doe first either. But I'm no biologist. Just a reminder, if you've got a kid 18 or under 18, we won't judge it that close, and you have a picture of them enjoying their favorite outdoor activities, post it either here on my pages, or Craig says the second buck is to keep people hunting and going north and spending money in rural areas. People will not travel for does. I can't argue with that. That makes complete sense. Complete sense. Fall in. I have no I have no tie into the Fall Inn. The only reason to go to Charlie Wiltsey's restaurant would be the primal tie-in, because I'm not gonna here's the honest truth, I'm not gonna bring a sellout crowd of 100 people, whatever the number is, into a restaurant and make them a buttload of money for no reason. I don't get a cut of it, but I'm only gonna work with my partners on that. I'm not gonna give that away. All righty. Let's see if we can't do this. By this, you're gonna know what I mean right away. You know what that is. I mean, it's time to wrap up this edition of Wednesday Night Live. And you still got plenty of time to get over to Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine's Teaching Fishing Live. And Lance is a marketing genius. I have much love, much respect for Lance, but he is no dummy. When he comes on here and says he's got to go because he's got to go do his own live, there's a reason for that. And I respect that, Lance. I have no problem with that at all. So anyway, if you have a picture of a kid in the outdoors enjoying their favorite hunting or fishing or shooting or trapping experience, post it with the hashtag Forward Fuels Tradition. Forward Fuels Tradition. Hayden Hale, his dad did that for him, and he won a $50 gift card to the Forward convenience stores. Forward Fuels Tradition. Hashtag Forward Fuels Tradition. Those of you who could join me last week, I appreciate it. Thank you. My name is Mike Avery. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My show is called Outdoor Magazine. You can find me all over social media. And of course, I do this thing called Wednesday Night Live every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Have a good night, my friend.